Hey guys, we're here for chapter 44 of The False Prince. We just learned Jaren's backstory. Super nuts. He's actually sage, and we know that the king, King Egbert, left him to become an orphan because he was worried about the regents that were trying to kill him. So we're back from the flashback. Now we're back in front of Connor. We're in the carriage heading to Drilliad. And yeah, so here we go. My head snapped up as our carriage bumped over a rock in the road. Connor, sitting in the seat directly opposite me, watched me with obvious disgust. I knew he hated having to choose me as his prince. But Tobias, who was asleep on my right, was a complete failure, and Roden, sitting up straight on my left, could not convince the regents. Imogen was on Connor's left. She stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge that she saw anything at all. Mott sat on Connor's right and nodded slightly at me when I looked at him. There had been no point in lying any further to Mott. Back at the river, he hadn't asked whether I was the prince. He knew it. And he knew by my reaction that he was correct. Undoubtedly, he had 100 questions to ask, and there were so many things I wanted to tell him just to have somebody to speak openly to. But Connor was anxious for us to leave, and there was no time. All I had asked of Mott was that he kept our secret to himself. Judging by Connor's sour expression, he had obeyed. Now, sour expression, does that mean that Connor's just sucking on a lemon in the back of this carriage? No, that's not what it means. There's no lemon in this story right now, so we know that that's not what it is. It means that he's got this kind of a face on. Like, he's upset, he's annoyed, he's in a very unpleasant mood. So, keep note of that. That'll help you with your chapter 44 question at the end. Here we go. I leaned back and closed my eyes again, not to sleep, but to be alone with my thoughts. After 4 years of pretending, of immersing myself so completely in Sage's identity, could I emerge convincingly as Jaren? So now Sage, Jaren, is worried about becoming his actual self. He's been pretending to be Sage for so long that now he's worried that he won't even be able to be Jaren correctly. So we're about to see if he can actually do it. Connor's regimen of lessons in the past week actually had been helpful. I had forgotten the names of several court officials and even a few of my ancestors that a prince would be expected to know. As a boy, I had been well trained in both sword fighting and horseback riding, both which were as instinctive to me now as breathing. Although I had practiced whenever possible in the orphanage, those skills had softened over the past 4 years, and it was good to build them up again. Even though I was pretending to sleep, I couldn't help but smile at the memory of Cregan's anger when I challenged him to his wildest horse. The horse he'd brought me out from the stables really was beyond my skills to train, and I was barely able to control her enough to steal the fake sword while everyone was distracted elsewhere. Other things had been a waste of time. Obviously, I could read much better than I let on, though to have confessed that would have been disastrous for my disguise. I'd have to apologize later to Tobias for that lie. He would have secured his papers more carefully if he had known I had read every word on them while he slept at night. Of course, my back still stung from where he'd cut me, and that was far worse of a crime. I'd agreed to forgive him if he forgave me. There were a lot of things I'd have to ask for forgiveness for, and I feared I wouldn't receive half as much of it as I wanted. Not from Imogen, who had trusted me with the greatest secret of her life, that she could speak. I'd trusted her with nothing. And not from Amarinda, who pled with a broken heart for any truth about whether Darius, the prince she was betrothed to and loved, was alive, or about the existence of his younger brother, whom she would eventually have to marry if Darius really were dead. and I'd get no forgiveness ever from my mother, who went to her death believing I'd died in an attack by Avenian pirates, nor from my father. And for the most of the past 4 years, I'd blamed him for keeping me away from the castle. True, I'd accepted his request without argument, but how could I have known then how difficult these recent years would be? He would have known much of what was ahead of me, and still he chose peace for his country over his own son. Maybe it was the right thing to do, but I still didn't know for sure. But it didn't diminish my shame that they'd had to send me away in the first place, nor my anger at my father, who, at his first reunion with me in the church, already had a plan to keep me away. I returned every month to the church near the orphanage to see my father, but I never let him know I was there. We never spoke again. It was only after Connor told me that both my parents and my brother had been killed that I began to understand my father in a new way. He had said that his greatest enemies were the regents. Connor had told me that all 3 members of the family were intended victims, so that a regent would have to be crowned. Well, at Farthenwood, I slowly began to understand that as long as 4 years ago, my father had foreseen the possibility that all of them could be murdered one day. He didn't keep me away to protect himself from embarrassment, nor was it to avoid having to declare war on Avenia. My father kept me away to keep me alive. The pirates had tried to kill me, he must have worried that the rest of his family's lives were in danger. He had told me in the church that day that the royal line must continue to save Carthia, so that if the worst happened, they were all killed, I would remain to claim the throne. He'd even given me a way home. I just never expected to need it. He had let me think the worst of him for over 4 years, and I had eagerly done so. For that, I could never have his forgiveness. When Connor first brought me to Farthenwood, I had thought he knew that Jaron was alive, and he was searching for the prince, hoping to use him for some sort of ransom. So I determined that he must never suspect my true identity. That would have been bad, but Connor's real plan was far worse. He was hoping to fool the entire kingdom with a fraudulent prince, fake, an unknown, a false prince. I knew then that the best course of action was to play along with his plan, get him to choose me on my own terms, then return to Dryliad to prove my identity. Connor had his plan and I had mine. Whether each of them would work remained to be seen. Connor kicked my feet to get my attention. "We're nearly there," he said. "Straighten up and at least try to look like a prince." "Are we going to the castle this late at night?" I mumbled while glancing out the window into the darkness. "Of course not. We'll stay at an inn. The choosing ceremony is tomorrow evening." "If we're going to the inn, then I go as I am." I slouched back into my seat. The charade of being sage was nearly over, and I planned to enjoy it as long as I could. So that's the end of chapter 44. The questions, again, are super simple. Basically, you need to choose the correct definition of the word sour. We did talk about that, so hopefully you guys were listening. And then secondly, you need to kind of explain the foreshadowing of how King Ecbert told Jaron that the regents were trying to kill him and that, that was his biggest threat. So, Jaron, I need to protect you. What was that foreshadowing? What actually happened in this story that King Ecbert predicted 4 years ago? Okay? You guys got this? If you have any questions, email me. Otherwise, I will see you in the Zoom calls. Peace.